Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Dave's Green Living, and today we're making flaxseed bread. So flaxseed bread, this is a really simple recipe. If you've never made bread before or had a go at it, this is a really nice way to get yourself started. Really minimal ingredients, minimal effort, and you can get a really nice loaf of bread. It's also gluten-free, or if you're diabetic, it's got a really low GI index as well, and it's plant-based. So the only ingredients in it are some ground flax seeds, some cider vinegar, baking soda, baking powder, some water, and we mix that all together and we stick it in the oven. So really simple, really straightforward. The one thing that you have to remember with making this recipe is with the flax seeds that we use in this recipe are golden flaxseed, and I grind my own. So if you can find it pre-ground, it has to be fine. If you're going to grind your own the way I've done mine, what you need to do is stick it in your grinder, grind it the first time, sift it, and then what's left over in your sieve, regrind that, and then sift it again. You'll get about two grinds out of it before you have to discard that and put a fresh load of seeds in. You need 260 grams for this recipe, so make sure you buy about 320 grams of flaxseed, because you're going to have that little bit left over. So if you don't sift it and get that fine grain into your flour, it won't rise properly. It'll be really coarse and it'll stay flat. You won't get the air in the loaf that you need in order for it to rise. The other thing is, when you add the cider vinegar to the baking soda, you get a chemical reaction. That chemical reaction is what causes the loaf to rise. So you need to be able to mix it fairly quickly, and don't over knead it as well. It's not like normal wheat bread where you have to do a lot of kneading and knead the yeast and the ingredients together to get it all through the loaf. That's not the case here. Is once you add your dry ingredients, then you add your wet ingredients and you mix it all together, you shape it, and then you put it in your loaf tin and it goes straight in the oven. So it's really quick and easy relative to making other loaves of bread, especially if you use like a bread maker or something like that. Then you'll find this a little bit different. But if you like that kind of hands-on, cottagey way of making bread, wholesome ingredients, and making it yourself, this is an ideal recipe. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is add our dry ingredients. So we have our fine mixed flour, our fine ground flour. So we're going to add that to our bowl first. And then we're going to add our baking powder. And then we're going to add our baking soda. Again, these are primarily raising agents so that our loaf rises. Otherwise, we would just have a flat loaf, which that could still happen. And then we're going to add our salt to the mix. I use Himalayan pink salt for all my cooking and all my ingredients. I used to use sea salt. We're going to mix all that together like I'm doing now. I used to use sea salt, but from the research I've been doing and the things I've been reading, a lot of plastic is starting to get into sea salt now, because the sea, unfortunately, is so polluted with plastics and microplastics. So I've switched over to Himalayan pink salt instead. You tend to need a little bit more of Himalayan pink salt to get the same effect as you do with sea salt. But yeah, it works good. It looks nice. It's pink. So mix all those ingredients together really well. What you find with the linseed as well is it's oily. It's not like normal flour. And so it can clump, and it takes a little bit more mixing to get all your ingredients through your sifted through your mix really well. You can sift it in with a sieve, but I just find giving it a good mix like this works really well. So you want to mix it in just a little bit longer than you would for a normal mix. Make sure you don't have any clumps of white in it or anything like that. The thing is, if you get that baking soda or baking powder in your mix and you get a clump of it and then you eat it, it tastes awful. It's so bitter. It's disgusting. So those are all our dry ingredients, really nicely mixed in now. So now we're going to add our wet ingredients. As I was saying before, when you add the cider vinegar, that's going to react, and that's what's going to start to give it, add air to your mix. So we're going to add our water. Now you want your water to be warm. It can be boiling. I tend to like it warm so it's still steaming. So you're just going to add that, and add that a little bit at a time as you're stirring through it. Now, as I said before in the beginning, you don't really want this to be, you don't want to over mix it. So you just want to kind of keep a steady flow, and you can see that that's mixing in really well. Again, it's not like wheat. If you're used to using wheat flour or flours with gluten, they mix in entirely different than something like this. So this mixes in pretty quickly. It absorbs the water really fast. And again, you want to mix it in at least enough so that the moisture is mixed all the way through the entire lump of flour. You don't want any dry spots or anything like that. That's mixed in pretty well now. Now I'm going to add cider vinegar. It's only a little bit of cider vinegar. It's only 5 mils of cider vinegar. And you probably, I don't know if you can see from there, but you can see that's already starting to foam. This foam here is the apple cider vinegar reacting with the baking soda. So again, you want to mix that through really nicely. Just spoon that through, turn it over. That's enough. And what I do, I tend to cut my spoon through the mix to just break it up, make sure you have it all mixed in together. That's it. You don't want to really mix it any more than that. So you get our loaf tin and just lift the whole thing out, and you're just going to shape it now. You're going to shape that, and it shapes really nicely, really quickly. Now, if you notice, I haven't kneaded that like you would if it was a gluten or another type of loaf. That's already starting to rise. And I'm just going to put that in my loaf tin. You don't have to add the wax paper. I just prefer it because I find everything I put into a loaf tin sticks. And that's what it will look like when it's done. Just as an added feature, this is a prepackaged seed mix, and I just throw some of those across the top. Get a nice little rustic look, little Dave's Green Living touch. We're going to stick that in the oven, and I will see you on the other side. I should have done one like, here's one I made earlier, but I haven't. So I'm going to stick this in the oven now, and then I'll see you when we take it out, see what it turns out like. The finished loaf is out of the oven. This is my favorite bit. I love this. So this could be really embarrassing because it's turned out awful, or it's really lush and probably going to kill the whole loaf in one go. No, it won't. So there we go. Look at that. That is our loaf. You can see it's really thick. It's a really dense loaf of bread. It's not like a normal loaf of bread where it's full of air. If you're not eating a plant-based diet, I think you could probably add egg to this, or maybe even yeast. I don't need any of those kinds of foods, obviously, because I eat a plant-based diet. I don't know, I'm probably not that bothered about yeast. I don't need eggs. But it depends. I like this really thick, kind of dense types of bread. I just love the flavor. They're really robust flavors, they're really intense flavors. I really like that. I like that in my food. But if it's not something that you like, if you like it more light and airy, like a normal loaf of bread, you can add other ingredients. So if you want me to, I'll make another video, and I'll make a video on something like this, a flaxseed bread that's more like a loaf of bread, more like a traditional loaf of bread that's much more airy and light. So that's been another episode of Dave's Green Living, and I hope you enjoyed that. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Try it yourself. Try a loaf of flaxseed bread, see what you think. And I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.